Hello, I'm Paul Orselli, and I'm super happy to be joined today by Matt Kirkman. Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure, always. So, Matt, what's just one thing about exhibits that you would like to share with people?
Just one thing about exhibits. Um, so, my just one thing is how the intellectual navigation of an exhibition is inextricably linked to the physical navigation of an exhibition. And this comes from my um, position as a planner. I'm not a designer of object installations or media programs. I'm a concept person. So I really think a lot about how people journey through a space and what their encounter experiences. What are they gonna encounter as they move through space? So the idea of moving through space is very much, for me, a parallel to how things are processed in the brain. And I think that um, uh, I know this is maybe more than one thing, but it's not really. I think elegance in a plan, elegance and a well-designed plan will translate to comfort in the visitor, excuse me, in the visitor experience. So, there are some kind of standards of practice that many exhibit developers and design teams go through, developing a big idea, developing a hierarchy of primary, secondary, tertiary messages, all of that kind of information architecture. The more that that can parallel the physical architecture, I think the more success we have in creating a cohesive and valuable experience for our guests.
Well, I'm gonna let you point out perhaps not to be negative, but point out perhaps pitfalls between this relationship between the physical and the conceptual, which I think is a really cool connection. So maybe for exhibit developers or designers or museum clients out there, what kinds of pitfalls might they be aware of, either on the conceptual side or the physical side, or where they intersect?
Yeah, um, I think what I just said about kind of a rigor to developing an experience goes right up against, butts up uncomfortably against the idea of free choice learning and random circulation, which most exhibits have. Most, maybe an occasional history exhibit will be a forced march through a path, if it's strictly organized according to a chronology, and the designers haven't been able to kind of overcome um, uh, that stranglehold of chronology, and so they might design an experience that is very much a progression of ideas over time, for example. But most exhibits are not that. Most exhibits are more free choice. They're more, I actually compare them a lot to web browsing. They're like web browsing experiences where um, you find something that you're interested in, whether that's an object or a story or a person, and then you engage with it for a while, and then you kind of click on something else. And your journey in an exhibit is very much like that, like tabs on a website or hyperlinks, where we find ourselves being basically moving our bodies according to what moves us in the space. And then the meaning making is kind of a result of that. We try and stitch together the experience, um, and that is so that's a pitfall, is to design something that's so rigorously narrative and then try and apply it to a free choice learning environment. So if you're committed to the free choice circulation of a space, then your interpretive plan, your message outline, your message map onto that space has to really match that journey, match that pattern. So you may have to be opening up conversations more frequently than say an exhibit that's more in a straight line or a march. So you'll have to be introducing new ideas and getting people reoriented numerous times in a more random circulation kind of space.
This makes me think of an experience that I had and many other people had on the High Line in New York called the Mile Long Opera. And it was an opera, with sections and themes and people who were reciting or singing aspects of it, but it was along the entire mile long length of the High Line, and you went in at the beginning and you left at the end, but how long you stayed in certain parts or how you attended to certain parts was completely up to you. It still had a structure, a narrative structure, an operatic structure, but it was completely an outdoor mile-long opera. I mean, it
Mhm,
was
mhm.
cool. I mean,
Int-
I don't know. I don't know if you think about the notion of just to pick up on the music part of it, of a rhythm to the experience. I mean, even if you have a free choice experience, like do you look for things to have sort of equal pulls in a free choice environment, or what do you think about in that regard in terms of the concept playing with the physical part of the design?
Yeah, I think a lot about, if I were to use a musical analogy, I would think of it as a symphonic experience where at times everyone is playing together, but there are beautiful moments where there are soloists or duets, where there are pauses. So I think it really is an orchestrated experience. And what I said earlier about reorienting people, reorienting visitors to new ideas. Um, I think there's really something in that. Like your mile long opera experience was organized according to, you knew that as you traversed that mile long High Line, that it was all unified through the musical medium, through perhaps a narrative storyline. You kind of know what to expect, and you're able to hang it all together. But in a museum experience where you might have a, an experience that's driven by an audio visual, and then the next one is an object display, and the next area is more interactive, with things to push and pull and touch. And if there are differences in the experience, which we also all strive for to really modulate the experience, then it's even more important to have some kind of mechanism to hold it all together, whether that's graphic or text or lighting. Something. There's got to be something that holds it all together so that those different instruments are still in the band.
Yeah, I'm just struck. Of course, to the visitor, we don't necessarily want all that the sort of backstage stuff, the planning. We want them to just sort of enjoy this effortless and moving experience. But really, to make that happen takes a tremendous amount of coordination and planning between the conceptual and physical. So,
Yeah, yeah. I just visited uh, an exhibition about American art, and it was there was a very clear big idea stated at the arrival into the gallery about the intersection of American art and Native American art, and where are the similarities, and why do these basically two collections deserve to be so dispersed and intermingled. And so throughout the exhibition, there are interesting juxtapositions of Native art and American art by non-Native people. And this will be no this will be no surprise where this is, when this plays. But The museum did a fantastic job of reminding the visitor why these things were next to each other, and used some common themes writ large, I mean physically writ large, graphics and narrative audiovisual pieces to help visitors understand this unusual juxtaposition and engage with this unusual juxtaposition and navigate this conversation. So navigate the idea at the same time they're navigating the space. And it was, very, really, really well done.
Cool. Well, I think as is often the case, even though we start out talking about just one thing, there's a lot of things in that one thing suitcase, which is
Yeah,
great. I
yeah,
mean, this certainly makes me reflect on uh, my own projects, but other people's projects and experiences I've had both inside and outside of museums. So I thank you for that.
sure. I would just restate it as what you want to achieve in the space. If it works well in a diagram or in a intellectual plan, then you're 85% of the way there.
Uh, spoken as a person with a true graphic design eye. Well, thanks, Matt. I
Thank
appreciate it
you,
very
Paul.
much. Take care.
Sure. Thank you.